On today's installment, again, we're going to be talking about John Wick Chapter 4 has its reviews out right now. Dwayne Johnson gives some comments about being removed from DC and as Black Adam, of course. The Last of Us has hit record numbers for its series in its finale. Could the Everything Everywhere All at Once writing and directing duo actually end up directing Marvel's Avengers Secret Wars? Maybe. 40% of people, a recent study says, subscribe to streaming stations just for one single show. Scream 6 breaks a franchise box office record. All that and a whole bunch more. The John Campea Show starts right now. Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel, brought to you in part by our friends at Mint Mobile. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, TV and streaming, and dealing with YouTube technical issues. Yeah! Anyway, I'm joined here today, sitting over there is Ray Ora. Back there we got Taylor Gonzalez. Jonathan Voico is running the show. Writer, director, producer, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett's over there. And listen, seriously, guys, for a second, we run a gag on the show, but I'm finding out it's actually a real problem. We run a thing on the show about send Rob your scripts.
What do you mean real problem?
Well, apparently there are people who don't understand when to take things seriously, because there are those who actually think that, you know, it's a gag, those who think it's real. Let me clarify. It's absolutely real. Robert Meyer Burnett wants you to send him your scripts. What are you waiting for? Send them in. Anyway, guys, good to have you here, and here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to break it into two parts. First part of the show, we're going to talk about some predetermined topics. Second part of the show, we're going to take your live comments and questions. When we get to the end of the main topics, we will announce that we're opening up the super chats. That'll be your time to fire in your thoughts, theories, opinions, and questions, and we'll address those in the last part of the show. Also want to let you guys know, later this afternoon, we are going to have an open mic, but I've been getting some requests from some people asking to, instead of submitting live questions, to be able to submit via the old mailbag format, where you can submit a question anytime by going to our tip link. I put up a poll in the community tab, and you guys asking if you would prefer open mic to have live questions, or if you would prefer to have the mailbag style where you could send in the questions anytime. And overwhelmingly, 75% of you said you wanted the mailbag style. So now we can bring up the graphic again. We are going to have an open mic this afternoon, and if you want to send in a question for it, instead of having to send it in live, you can send in your question anytime, 24/7. Simply go to streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. That's streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip, and you guys can submit a question, and it will be on open mic. We're still going to call it open mic. We're not going to call it mailbag, but we're still going to call it open mic. Just a reminder to everybody, sending in a tip question does not automatically 100% guarantee that your comment or question will be read. We reserve the right, if some inappropriate stuff comes in, that we just aren't going to read it, but we'll thank you for your tip anyway. All right. With all that down, guys, we've got a lot of stuff to cover here today. And we're starting late. Again, apologies for the late start. YouTube had an issue. We got it all straightened out, and we're ready to go. And we're going to start off with this. Now, of course, one of the movies in March, and a lot of movies coming out in March that people are very, very excited about. We already had Creed. We already had Scream 6. 65 ended up being better than I thought it would be. I'm super stoked about seeing Shazam this week, but John Wick Chapter 4 is coming out. Now, last week, the first reactions for John Wick Chapter 4 came out, and they were glowing. I mean, glowing is almost an understatement. They were really, really hyped, positive. People were having a really good time. But we see that happen sometimes. And then the full reviews come out, and it's like 48% on Rotten Tomatoes or something like that. Well, the full reviews have started to come out for John Wick Chapter 4, and they're solid. We can go over to my screen right here if you want. John Wick Chapter 4, the full reviews. Now, they're just trickling in now. There's 31 reviews counted so far. Last I checked, it was at 85. It's gone up to 87%. And here's what some of the critics are saying about it. Some of them are saying it's fantastic. Some are saying, hey, it's just more of the same John Wick, but that's a good thing. The Wrap writes, John Wick 4 barrels along with charming idiosyncrasy. I love that. Even when it drags, 169 minutes is a lot of time to fill, even for this masterful crew. The film gamely mixes comedy, action, and drama into one truly satisfying cocktail. The Daily Beast says, designed as a culmination as much as a continuation. It may not be as consistent. Let me try it again. It may not be consistent enough to rank as the franchise's finest, but when it gets going, it cooks with gas. Entertainment Weekly says, how does nearly 3 hours of wham bam noise and nonsense, unmitigated by any meaningful plot, work as well as it does? Which is totally great. I love hearing that too.
My kind of review.
Even BBC was kind of mixed, but they said ultimately, running at 2 hours and 49 minutes, it's bigger than the previous films in every way. Not better or worse, just more, which is fine. I totally love the John Wick films as they are, so I'm totally good with that. So bottom line is here, we got the glowing initial reactions. We are now seeing the reviews coming out. The full reviews seem to be pretty satisfied. Rob, you hear about these reviews coming out for John Wick 4, and where's your anticipation level like
Dude,
right now
I read
for John
Owen
Wick?
Gleiberman's review in Variety today, and I have to tell you that review.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
That review made me more excited than ever. I can't wait to see these movies. You know, these movies know exactly what they're supposed to be, and they deliver. And to me, that somebody made me a 2 hour and 49-minute John Wick movie is that they're thinking. That's some officer thinking. I can't wait for this. I mean, he's going to fight Donnie Yen on steps in Paris all the way leading up to the, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks
I'm like, bring it on, dude. I can't wait. I hope Hot Toys now makes a Donnie Yen figure to go with John Wick.
And now we've got the full reviews. We're seeing what it is. I'm excited for it. Guys, question is for you. Where are you at right now? Are you excited for John Wick Chapter 4? If so, do you like seeing these reviews? Are they better than you thought they would be? Are they more toned down than you thought they'd be? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. That down. Let's move on to this, shall we? One of the more surprising, underperforming movies of the year, maybe of the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, is, of course, Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam, a movie that I personally like and I had fun with. It wasn't as good as I was hoping, but I enjoyed it. I had fun. I watched it a couple of times. I had a good time with it. There are certainly some things in it that were really stupid, and certainly some things in it that I thought, you spent 15 years putting this together, but it was what it was. But whether you loved the film or hated the film, it is universally acknowledged that the film drastically underperformed. I mean, when they first started talking that Dwayne Johnson is going to be Black Adam, I mean, come on, let's admit, everybody was thinking, well, that's an automatic $1 billion film. That's a $1 billion film. Well, not so much. And as the disappointment of Black Adam kind of washed over things and whatever, and then, of course, we found out with James Gunn and Peter Safran taking over DC, we found out that Black Adam was no longer going to be part of the DCU. The hierarchy of power in DC did not change as much as people thought and had been greatly exaggerated. Well, on the red carpet of the Oscars, Dwayne Johnson was asked about, his removal, Henry Cavill's removal, like that, because this whole big plan that Dwayne Johnson had, right, about it being taken away. And he said this, a couple of things that I think really do make sense and something we can talk about. Dwayne Johnson said the following: all that I could do and that we could do when we were making Black Adam was put our best foot forward, surround ourselves with the best people, and then also deliver the best movie that we could. Our audience score was in the 90s. Critics took a couple of shots. That's just the business of it, though. But I think it's almost like when you have a pro football team and your quarterback wins championships, the head coach wins championships, and then you have a new owner. And the new owner comes in and says, not my coach, not my quarterback. I'm going to go with somebody new. And actually, that's a very good sports analogy. That's an excellent, excellent sports analogy. So listen, on the one hand, I love what Dwayne's saying, because listen, we say this all the time. Everybody has a bad day at the office. It does not matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're even Steven Spielberg has had a bad day or two at the office, right? And I'm looking right at the terminal. Even Steven Spielberg has had bad days at the office. And, when Dwayne Johnson says, look, all we could do was do the best we could. Surround ourselves with the best people that we could, put out the best movie that you can. And he's 100% right. At the end of the day, that's all you can do. Make the best product you can, put it out there, and hope it connects with people. Now, he can reference the 90% audience rating, and that's great. But the reality is that same audience didn't come back to watch it multiple times. And that same audience didn't go and tell other people to go see it. Because if they did, this movie would have made more than 300 something-ish million dollars at the box office. But I also want to kind of maybe take issue with something in his sports analogy of, hey, you know, you got a championship coach and a championship quarterback. He's probably talking about himself and Henry Cavill, I'm guessing. And then new owners come in, James Gunn, Peter Safran, and they say, well, it's not my coach and it's not my quarterback. We're going to go with something new. I love the analogy, except this wasn't a championship coach and championship quarterback situation. This is a team that didn't make the playoff situation. It's not like you made a Black Adam movie and it made $1.2 billion at the box office and had like, you know, resounding rabid audiences going back and dragging their families to go see it over and over again, like they did with Avatar, like they did with Top Gun Maverick. And it's not like that it had this huge success. To continue the sports analogy, it not only was a team that didn't make the playoffs, it was a team that finished in the bottom of its division. So it's not quite accurate. And, you know, I think, Rob, we're going to be looking at this Black Adam situation probably for a few years, because I think there's a lot, because remember, you're talking about the hottest genre in movies, comic book genre, the hottest movie star in the world in Dwayne Johnson. And honestly, to me, not a bad film. At least, I mean, I know some people think it was quite bad. I didn't think it was a bad film. How it could make less than Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, or how much actually Taylor looks at what made more, Black Adam or Morbius? I'm gonna hope that it's Black Adam.
Well, they had that really successful re-release of Morbius.
Yes, that just padded those box office numbers. But did you get those? Were you able to find that number?
I'm getting it right now.
Anyway, Rob, I mean, Dwayne Johnson, first of all, he's approaching it like he should. You know what? We did the best we could. And now I'm going to move on and make more hit movies. But he's also kind of looking at it, in my opinion, and he's my second favorite movie star in the world behind Ryan Reynolds. I love Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Love him. But he seems to be looking at it a little bit with some rose-colored glasses. I don't know. What did you make of his comments?
Well, look, I think that he had everything in place to make a great film. And they made the movie, again, that they set out to make. But I think that the premise and what the movie was about was flawed. It was old school. It was like 90s superhero fare. And they didn't take into consideration where the genre has gone. I mean, look, when you're looking at a Christopher Nolan Batman movie, this might seem strange to say, but Black Adam needed a little of that. A little grounding. It just seemed so, I don't know, basic. I think Dwayne Johnson needed to, you know, it's like when Dwayne Johnson's in Skyscraper. Everyone knows Skyscraper's kind of ridiculous, a Die Hard ripoff, whatever, but Dwayne Johnson carries it. In this case, they needed a really great, innovative script that had a lot of things that people hadn't seen before. I mean, a good story that people hadn't seen before. And I think that's the problem, is that it just felt derivative. And when you went and saw it, you didn't come out of it going, I mean, it was like you, John, it was fun. Like, I enjoyed watching it, but I never need to see it again. You know, you want to come out of a movie and go, man, like, I don't know, call it what you want, but you watch Infinity War and Endgame, the rewatchability factor of those movies is great.
It made me want to see a Justice Society movie, though.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, it did.
Yes,
it
did.
Yeah, I want to see more Dr.
Did.
Fate. I want to see more of that Hawkman. Hell, I didn't think I was going to like Atom Smasher and Whirly Whirly Wind Girl, but I want to see all of them. I liked all of them in the movie.
And that's the problem. Dwayne Johnson was not endearing, and he was badass, but not badass where I've got to see him again. Not like John Wick. You want to see more of John Wick?
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is John Wick cooler than Black Adam?
Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you make of Dwayne Johnson's comments? And honestly, I think we're going to be looking at and kind of dissecting and doing the autopsy on Black Adam for a long, long time. But Dwayne Johnson's got some perspective on it now. I love that he's just like, hey, you know what? We did the best we could. He's not making excuses. And he's just like, we're going to move on to the next film. But at the same time, I think he's looking at it with some rose-colored glasses. How do you guys feel about that? Where do you think it kind of the disconnect happened between the audience and Black Adam? Why didn't more people go to see it? Do you agree with Dwayne Johnson's perspective? Whatever you guys think, jump into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, the other night was the Oscars. And I personally thought it was a really good show.
Yep.
They simplified it. They brought it a little bit back down to basics. They made it a little bit more, you know, straight lined, but it was charming. It had some wonderful feel-good moments in the show. I still think they need to cut those damn music numbers, except for Natu Natu. That was one of the most fun moments of the entire evening. I love that little RR musical number. All that kind of stuff. But one of the big questions going into the Oscars this year was, what are the ratings going to be? I mean, I've had a lot of people writing into me saying they're going to continue to tank. They're going to go down. They're going to go down. Nobody cares about the Oscars anymore. Of course, it was airing the same night as the finale of Last of Us. And we had people writing into this show saying, you know, Last of Us is going to get way more viewers than the Oscars is and all that kind of stuff. And the Oscars is going to continue to tank. And I have made the bold prediction. A lot of people were saying this. It wasn't just me. That I think you're going to see the numbers, the rating numbers of the Oscars go up. I said they're not going to be like night and day, go up overnight, but you're going to see that you're going to see them continue to climb, go up, and absolutely more people will watch the Oscars that night than watch Last of Us. And well, that's what happened, because not only did the Oscars for the second year in a row see their viewership go up, it is the highest rated of any award show over the past 3 years. So seems recovering from that pandemic gut punch that it took. And they more than doubled the viewership that The Last of Us had on that night. But listen, if you're Last of Us, if you're airing your show the same night as the Oscars and you get nearly half the viewers as the Oscars do, that's a freaking feather in your cap, man. That's a boasting point. At any rate, we go over here and take a look at this. This comes to us from CNN, who wrote the following. Oscar ratings weathered a fungus-infected zombie invasion in the form of the season finale of the HBO's hit drama The Last of Us to post their second straight year-over-year improvement, regaining more of the audience that they lost when the viewership plummeted during the pandemic. The 95th Academy Awards averaged 18.7 million viewers per Nielsen data, a 12% increase compared to last year, and the biggest audience for any award show in 3 years. While that is still low in historic terms, given the overall erosion of linear TV viewing, such gains are surely welcome to host network ABC and the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts, and Sciences. So they went up again. Now, they really bottomed out in 2021. That was the damn train station Oscars. The year that I said they shouldn't even do the Oscars. Viewership completely bottomed out with the Oscars with 10 million viewers. Last year, they took a 60% increase. This year, it takes another 12% increase. They're back up to like 18.7 million. They're not back to the 2020 numbers that they had, which was a 20 plus million, but we see the Oscars getting back there. Okay. So a couple of the questions and things that I take away from this. Number one, it tells me that, again, take away sporting events. No, not sporting events. Take away NFL events, because the ratings in the Oscars were higher than the NBA finals. But they don't touch NFL, like the championship games and whatever. Take away NFL, the Oscars is still the highest viewed thing on television in North America. My other takeaway is, I think, again, the fact that they have 10 nominees. I know some people have wondered that whether the 10 nominees should be brought back down to 5 for Best Picture, but I think having 10 nominees and having films like Avatar, which I think would have got nominated anyway, Top Gun Maverick, which maybe would have got nominated anyway, but having these blockbuster films in there, and they deserve to be there. They weren't put there just as a token. They deserve to be in that thing. I think that was great. I think having these feel-good stories of like Ke Huy Quan getting his Oscar and the run that he had, I think just the real, even though Everything Everywhere All at Once wasn't a huge blockbuster hit, The Whale was not a huge blockbuster hit, but I think even people who never saw those movies were attracted to these really human feel-good stories of the return of Brendan Fraser, Ke Huy Quan. I think the story of the Daniels was really exciting. I think, you know, a number of these things was really promising and looked really good. And I think, I'm going to go on a limb right now, I think the ratings for the Oscars next year are going to go up again. because this year they put together a really good show. This was the first time in a while that I'm coming out of the Oscars, again, other than the musical numbers, I had no major complaints. It actually flowed really well. It felt tight. I like the show. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next year. Rob, we're getting the info now. We're getting the data. Again, second year in a row, they're up 72% from when they bottomed out in 2021. Despite the fact that it was going up against the finale of The Last of Us. What's your big takeaway from this info we're getting?
Well, I think you stated it really well. First of all, it was a great show. And I think that people came back to the movies this year. People are excited about movies more than they had been during the pandemic, certainly more than the train wreck. There just wasn't that many movies people could see. And the ones, no one wanted to get out of the house.
By the way, that was a pretty good moment.
It was yes, that was a very good moment. And I think this show, like you said, John, this was really a feel-good, buoyant, happy show. I mean, you felt good watching it. I mean, this picture right here sums it all up. I mean, not just because Everything Everywhere set Oscar records with the sweep that it made, but I mean, these are all great stories. They're all fun stories. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis, I've been watching Jamie Lee Curtis since 1978. And for her to win her first Oscar, what a great story that is.
It was Chris pointed out yesterday. Can we put that last picture back up there? But Chris was pointing out yesterday that of those four people, all of them, talking about feel-good stories, all four of them, first-time nominations.
Yeah.
And three of them basically thought their careers were basically done or the best of their careers was behind them.
Absolutely, 100%.
I mean, so you're right. I mean, that feel-good element is really prevalent.
And also I think that the feeling, obviously, the political feelings toward Hollywood, they kept the show, they kept a lot of politics out of it that people get upset about, and they really celebrated, they brought the glitz and the glamour back. I mean, once again, everybody on the red carpet looked great. It was just, that's why you watch the Oscars, to feel that Hollywood magic. And it was sort of untainted. It was uncut Hollywood magic. And, there's that meme, I posted it on my page, of Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones hugging Shorty from Temple of Doom.
Well, he was the first person that he gave the Oscar for the Best Picture to Ki Kwan first. It was beautiful.
It was so good. And it's like, come on. It's the magic. There's still magic in Hollywood, John, and the Oscars proved it this year.
All right, guys. Question is for you. What do you think about this? Again, another year that the ratings for the Oscars went up again, fared very well against the powerhouse that is The Last of Us season finale. What did you attribute that to? Do you think the numbers will continue to go up next year? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move over to our Mint Mobile hotline question of the day. If you guys have a question for the show and you'd like to hear your voice on our show, go ahead and call our hotline anytime 24/7 at 951-268-4259. And right now we got a really interesting question about The Last of Us Season 2. Check it out.
Hey, John and crew. This is Chris from New York. I just found out that the creators confirmed that the Part 2 video game will be split into 2 seasons. I loved Season 1. Can't wait for Season 2 and 3 now. What are your thoughts on this? Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Chris. Okay, so Last of Us, we're going to talk a little bit about the rating numbers and all that kind of stuff of Last of Us finale in just a little bit. But we now are anxiously awaiting Season 2. And unfortunately, we're going to have to wait for a while. Maybe a year and a half at minimum, maybe like 2 years, we're going to have to wait. And you know what? It is what it is. So a lot of people have been wondering for a while, because there have been some hints, some implications that maybe they might split Game 2, Last of Us 2, into 2 seasons of TV, as opposed to what they did with Part 1. They did it all in 1 season. They wrapped it up in 1 season. And I thought that they could do that because there's a lot of narrative. There's a lot of narrative in the second game. Well, a lot of people are hoping they would do that. And apparently now the showrunners, Neil Druckmann and Mazin, have come out and confirmed that they are indeed going to be doing more than 1 season for Part 2. And they could be making some significant changes for Part 2. This is what happened. So Mazin, when they were being interviewed by GQ, and Mazin and Druckmann were asked, are you going to do The Last of Us 2, the video game, in one season like you did for season 1? Mason said, nope, no way. Then Druckmann said, it's more than one season. Then the person who was doing the interview asked them, can you tell us if it's 2 seasons or 3 seasons? And Mason said, you have noted correctly that we will not say how many seasons we're going to break that game into, but more than one is factually correct. And then Druckmann said this, which is interesting. Some of the stuff I'm most excited in part 2 are the changes that we have discussed and seeing the story come to life again in this other version. And I think it's exciting because it leans into those feelings you had from the game really heavily in a new way. Okay, so there's 2 big things here. Number 1, that The Last of Us 2 is going to at minimum be split into 2 seasons of television. And I think that's great because it really is. There's so much story in that game that if you're just going to do these 8-episode, 9-episode seasons, you can easily break that into 2 episodes. And if you know the game, there really is a very good natural point about midway into game 2 that would make a really satisfying conclusion to a season of television. So that can work really well. Now, let's put on our conspiracy hats for a second. And you can bring up the spoiler warning. I'm going to give a spoiler about The Last of Us Part 2. Many of you already know it, but for those of you who don't, as long as that spoiler warning is up there, mute your computer. You can unmute it when the spoiler warning comes down. Okay? You've been warned. Here we go. Most of you know that in The Last of Us Part 2...
Don't do it, John.
Right near the beginning of the game, that Joel dies. Right near the beginning of the game. And a lot of people have wondered about whether or not they may change that because Pedro Pascal is like the hottest thing in the world right now. Like, do you really want to lose Pedro early in the season? And it was funny because I was talking about this in our Last of Us after show the other night. I said, you know what? I still think they're going to kill off Pedro. HBO seems to put story first. They don't go, oh, well, this actor's really popular now. Let's change our story.
Case in point, Game of Thrones.
Case in point, Game of Thrones. Exactly. Another HBO property. But with Druckmann saying, one of the things I'm really excited about are the changes we're going to make. Now, that could mean nothing because they made changes in season 1. They made some very wild changes in season 1 from the game. So maybe, and yet the basic construct of the story stayed the same. Even though there were a bunch of changes to the finer details of the story along the way, episode 3, the beginning of the season finale, all that kind of stuff, still the major basic points of the story stayed the same from beginning to end. So maybe what he's talking about is more changes like those. Or could he be referring to a fundamental change, like keeping Joel in the entire season? I don't think they will. Although, Rob, I would say there is a possibility that if they're going to split the second game into 2 seasons of television, they may find a way to have Joel last to at least near the end of season 2 and then be offed before they go into season 3. I mean, I don't know. First of all, what do you think about the basic idea of them splitting this into multiple seasons? Do you think they'll just keep it at 2, or do you think they'll actually split it into 3 seasons? And then what kind of changes do you think Druckmann could be talking about?
I think one that they're going to probably just split it into 2 seasons because that 3-season series is kind of the sweet spot for streaming now. Going into a 4th season is a lot more expensive. They probably will have to renegotiate deals, things like that. So unless they have a game that comes out before.
And ask Peter Jackson about taking something and splitting it into 3 parts instead of 2.
Yeah, no, I think they're going to do 2 parts, but I definitely think that they're going to have Joel last that the second season. I think they're going to change it so they make his passing a way to end that season with a wallop, an emotional powerhouse of an end. Very Game of Thrones-esque, very Ned Stark. That's what I think they would do. And I think narratively it makes sense because, a lot of people that haven't played, there's millions of people that are watching the show that haven't played the game. And if you do what they do in the game to an audience, you're going to lose them if they do it in the beginning of the second season. You've got to earn it. You got to earn it dramatically, because you're going to see the same kind of, that backlash that happened when people play the game, man. They weren't happy.
Yeah, but fuck them. The game went on to win all the awards and set sales records anyway.
I know, but I think from a narrative standpoint, I think they know that television's different, and I think that HBO's different, and they'll string it out more because they've got to earn it. They got to earn it.
I don't know. I can completely see them doing it, but if you do it well and you off him in like episode 2 of season 1, look, you look at shows like Sons of Anarchy, where a super big, hyper popular character can all of a sudden die, but the audience stays with you. Game of Thrones, I remember.
But you had a much bigger ensemble in those shows.
You did. That's true. That's a great point. But I remember too, when I watched Game of Thrones season 1 for the first time, and I got to the end of season 1, and they killed Ned Stark. I remember thinking to myself, well, I'm done with this show. I remember it's like, this was the main character. This is the guy I followed. I'm done with this show.
I did that with the Red Wedding.
And a lot of people did that with the Red. But guess what? Season 2, episode 1 came, and I was right there again.
Oh, worse than that. The next episode, I was right back after the Red Wedding.
Oh, yeah. Everybody
Yeah.
was. So many people. How many of those reaction videos when the Red Wedding happens, how many people did you see in those reaction videos going, I'm done with this show. I'm done with this show. Guess what?
Yeah.
They were right back in front of it the next thing. Yeah. But that doesn't mean you can't stretch it out, right? That maybe
Yes.
they do stretch it out. So while yesterday I would have said, no, they'll still kill him in episode 1 or episode 2 of season 2. Hearing Druckmann say that, maybe they do draw it out a little bit more and build those emotional underpinnings that you're talking about.
I think they're going to do that. I really do. Because one of the things that I was surprised in the adaptation that we've seen now is how little presence Fedra itself had in the show. And I was thinking that maybe they'll bolster that element. So you can see, because I felt that was kind of missing. The Fireflies and Fedra had very small. Because when you went to the town in Kansas City,
yeah,
you didn't get a sense. You kind of got a sense, but not really, that there was the push pull of that world. And they said it in the flashback. When they brought back the downloadable content, and they talked about, well, Fedra's fascist. But you didn't really see it. So I could see them bolstering that element more in the second season to add to the dramatic tension, which might push things further out than we saw in the game. But I don't know.
All right, guys. Question is for you. We can take the spoiler warning down now. Question is for you. What do you think about this interview? We're talking about, we are going to split the second game into multiple seasons, but they won't commit to saying whether that's 2 seasons or 3. I agree with Rob. I think it's probably going to be 2. And what did you think these changes might be that Druckmann is referring to? The same types of changes they had for season 1, or maybe something a little bit more drastic? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, before we continue, we're going to take just a quick second here and thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode of our show, our friends at Manscaped and MasterClass. Hey guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Manscaped. Breaking news, Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right, they are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with the brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make your drapes match your carpet by going to manscaped.com and using the code Campea for 20% off and free shipping. It all starts with the Beard Hedger. This thing is a juggernaut of fixing faces. First off, this cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard. So no more messy drawers full of extra add-ons. You also get the beard shampoo and conditioner. Because guys, you gotta remember that all of your hair is different. Your beard hair is more coarse and easier to damage than the hair on your head. Next, the kit has Manscaped's beard oil. The oil relieves dryness both on the beard and the skin beneath. You then cap it off with the Beard Balm that shapes, styles, moisturizes, and tames for a sculpted look. The Pro Beard Kit also comes with 3 special gifts: a beard brush, comb, and scissors to ensure your beard is ready to impress. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code Campea at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code Campea. Manscaped Beard Hedger, 1 stroke, 1 guard, 20 lengths. We want to thank a sponsor of this video, MasterClass. MasterClass offers classes on a wide variety of topics, all taught by world-class instructors at the very top of their fields. Each class is broken out into individual video lessons, usually around 10 minutes long. And MasterClass is completely accessible on your phone, the web, smart TV, and available via audio mode to listen to classes on the go. They have over 2,500 video lessons from over 180 of today's most brilliant minds. They're all available anytime, anywhere on iOS, Android, desktop, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and Roku. Now, obviously, around here on the John Campea Show, we love our movies, so why not learn filmmaking from Jodie Foster, or maybe directing from Ron Howard himself, or the great Neil Gaiman doing his class on the art of storytelling. And you guys have heard me talk about my favorite class, Business Strategy and Leadership by Big Papa Iger himself, Bob Iger, the new and returning CEO of Disney. So guys, I highly recommend that you check it out. Get unlimited access to every class, and as a John Campea Show listener, you get 15% off an annual membership. Just go to masterclass.com/Campea now. That's masterclass.com/Campea for 15% off Masterclass. And thank you to our friends at Manscaped and MasterClass for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show. Remember, guys, when you go and check out and support our sponsors, you're actually supporting us. So if you look down in the description of this video, right near the top, you'll find links and promo codes to the sponsors of today's show. And thank you again to Manscaped and MasterClass. All right, guys. With that down, let's go back over to our Mint Mobile hotline again, because we got a really interesting question coming off of the Oscars. What do you think about the idea of the Daniels directing an Avengers film? Check it out.
Hey guys, this is Carlos. My question revolves around the Daniels. Do you think with them winning Best Writing, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Directors, do you think maybe Kevin Feige tasked them to write and direct Secret Wars or maybe even Kang Dynasty? They seem like much better writers than the ones Marvel has right now, and they sure know how to make a multiverse movie. Thanks.
All right, Carlos, thanks for saying that in. You know, one of the big running gags after Everything Everywhere All at Once and Doctor Strange the Multiverse of Madness was out, it's like, well, there's a best multiverse movie this year, and it ain't Doctor Strange. Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Jamie Lee Curtis even made a joke about it. She talked about, this is the best, talking about Everything Everywhere. This is the best multiverse movie of the year. And she wasn't wrong. Everything Everywhere All at Once was better than Marvel's own multiverse movie. Now, granted, it was better than every movie that came out this year. According to the Oscars, of course, it took home Best Picture at the Academy Awards. But more to the point, the two Daniels not only directed that movie, they also wrote it. They wrote and directed this low-budget, Best Picture winning, Best Screenplay winning, Best Directors winning motion picture and Everything All at Once, in the midst of a time right now where a lot of loyal Marvel fans are saying the writing in Marvel right now is struggling. And, you know, the most recent, now that not all of it, some of it has been fantastic. Some of it has been absolute gold that I have loved, but it's struggling more than it has before. And the most recent, obviously, outing, Ant-Man Quantumania is a good example of that. That movie suffered from weaker writing. And right now, the person who turned in that weaker effort, Loveness, is currently the writer of record for, which one is it? Kang Dynasty or Secret Wars?
Kang.
For Kang Dynasty. Yeah. Now, I believe, no proof of this is just as a fan speculation. I believe they already have their director for Avengers Secret Wars. I think, and again, it's just a guess, I think it's Ryan Coogler. I think they're going to turn to Ryan Coogler for Secret Wars with an outside chance that maybe the Russo brothers come back to do another Avengers movie. Maybe. I don't know. Could Kevin Feige look at the Daniels as a possible double benefit hire, that not only would they be excellent directors for something like Avengers Secret Wars, but you also would get your writers at the same time. It's a 2-for-1. You get your writers, you get your directors, all in one package, boom. And listen, one of the things Kevin Feige has done a lot of in the past is taken people who have done low budget stuff, recognize that they're really good storytellers, and then give them a bigger MCU movie to do. James Gunn is a great example of that. James Gunn, whose history and background was making these smaller, low budget things, but as Kevin Feige told me, sitting across from me, he said, a good storyteller is a good storyteller. Same thing with the Russos. Want to remind everybody, the directors of You, Me, and Dupree. But Kevin Feige recognized in them, you know what? I see the seeds of good storytellers who can work with me in the stories I want to tell. And that worked out really well. Doesn't work out every single time. But now you can look at somebody like the Daniels, who kind of very much like the Russos. The Daniels took a small budget film and wrote the hell out of it. And with a modest budget, were able to make a Best Picture winner at the Academy Awards, something Kevin Feige has not been able to do yet. No comic book movie ever has. And you throw in that extra little spice, and it just so happens that their big win came in a multiverse movie that they did. And oh, by the way, the MCU right now is in the midst of something that they have titled the Multiverse Saga. Look, I'm usually very much the guy who goes, I don't care about X director directing X movie and all that kind of stuff. But this would be, in theory, a complete match made in heaven. Theoretically speaking, Kevin Feige going out and getting the two Daniels to do Avengers Secret Wars to cap off what they call their multiverse saga, the guys who are, by the way, Academy Award winning writers. Oh, and by the way, Academy Award winning directors. Oh, and by the way, directed the Best Picture winner at the Academy Awards at the same time. It would be an absolute match made in heaven. And they seem to have the spirit to, if you watch them in their interviews or their acceptance speeches at the Oscars, they seem to have the personality and spirit that Kevin Feige is just attracted to. They've got like a James Gunn-ness about them a little bit that I think Kevin Feige is really attracted to in people. And I think it would be absolute dynamite. So my one answer is, hell yes, that would be fantastic. And again, I'm not saying that just because they're the hot names right now. No. These are the types of guys Kevin Feige has worked with. They're coming out of a low budget background, and they are specifically just made a movie about the multiverse and did it better than Marvel did. So that is your package. But do I think it will actually happen? Nope. I don't think it'll happen. For two reasons. The one reason is, I think right now every studio is lining up and making pitches to the Daniels. They're lining up and going to the Daniels right now and saying, whatever you want to do. It's the same kind of situation that I think happened with James Gunn when he was first fired from Marvel, and every single studio in town went and lined up at his door and said, what do you want to do? And Warner Brothers won the lottery. What do you want to do? I think that is what's happening on the doorstep of the Daniels right now. And they're going to have the option to do any kind of wild project or drama or love story or comedy or whatever they want to do, they're going to be able to do. And they're going to ask themselves, do we want to do something where we're going to have complete freedom to make any story we want? Or do we want to go into a situation where Kevin Feige is telling us the story and we're just adapting and making the story he wants to tell? I don't know. I think they're going to probably pick something else. The second reason I don't think it will actually happen is because of what I said at the beginning. I actually think they have their director already. I think that's already set. And if it's Ryan Coogler, awesome. Like, you put a great director in there. And I can't remember. I think they said who the writer was for it. I can't remember who it's going to be. But maybe they get new writers. Who knows? But so on the one hand, Rob, I would love to see this because it's not just a hot name of the week with Marvel. It's an actual really good fit in my eyes. But I just don't think it will happen. So same two questions for you. Would you like the idea of the two Daniels doing an MCU film? And then secondly, could you see actually a possibility of it happening?
One, I don't particularly like the idea just because somebody has already, look, the Daniels made In Hollywood, what you want is clout, and you want to get power based on your previous performance. Everyone says you're only as good as your last picture. Their last picture swept the Oscars in a historic fashion. It was original. It was an original piece that they had come up with, original piece of IP, call it that. And I don't think they would want to go repeat themselves. And Marvel's not the kind of studio that's going to back up trucks to them. You know, Marvel hires James Gunn because they can get him for relatively cheap and step up. In this case, these guys are like you said, every studio is going to come after them. And what I think an artist wants, these guys are artists and filmmakers. How often do you get the clout to make whatever you want? And like you said, to have that kind of power, to be able to make anything that you want, that is the ultimate prize in Hollywood. And they've got it. And they've got it. Their win secures them not just of maybe doing it once, they could set themselves up with a 3-picture deal.
Yeah.
You know, and get themselves a housekeeping deal, get themselves a lot. Because they made this movie for relatively little money. And studios, you know, they're not going, I mean, unless they have a $200 million movie on their docket, I bet they don't. I bet they would rather, I mean, heck, I could see them maybe even not biting for a studio and making a deal with A24. You never know.
You dance with the one who brung you sort of situation.
I mean,
because the one thing is A24 doesn't have the money they could put up that, say, a Universal or Paramount or Warner Brothers
but
could.
The thing is, Universal and Paramount are not interested in making original visions. You know, they want to make $200 million known IPs that are not risk. The Daniels might have 4 risky scripts they want to make. It really depends what you want to do out of life. Do you want to make a shit ton of money, or do you want to be known as auteurists and make original visions that could maybe win you another Oscar?
And they'll still make good money.
And still make good money. Yeah, because they'll own it. They'll own a lot. It really depends what you want to do. I mean, if they make a Secret Wars, nobody cares. But if they make another movie
that's true.
Well, no, I mean, but what I mean is in terms of their status in the industry, it's not like Secret Wars. If it makes a lot of money, people aren't going to go, it was the Daniels that made Secret Wars a lot of money. You know, whereas the Daniels, they made A24, that they gave them their biggest box office worldwide ever. And they went, I mean, if A24 is indeed going to be the new Miramax, these guys want to be in business with them. The same way that Quentin Tarantino never jumped on the studio bandwagon and made a tentpole. Quentin Tarantino stayed his own man, became the auteur that he is, wrote and directed all of his own movies, and can write his own ticket and gets to make whatever he wants. What would you rather do? I think that's what they would rather do, is go the Tarantino route with a studio like A24. But maybe they have the idea for a $200 million tentpole that they want to make.
I mean, what is funny to me is imagining what Everything Everywhere All at Once could have been had it had a real budget, like a full, like a blockbuster budget. You know what's interesting about the situation too is they're in a kind of a reverse situation of a lot of Hollywood icons, because we've seen Hollywood icons like Scorsese, Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, guys like that, who for the longest time, they put together this incredible body of work and this incredible resume. And then I remember us talking about, back before he won his Oscar, Brad Pitt is now in a state of his career where he's taking films that might put him in position because he's to get an Oscar, because now he wants to build legacy, right? The Daniels are now in the absolute reverse position. They have come out of the gate with an Oscar. They've got that part done now. No matter what happens in their career from here on out, they've got that. No, not that one Oscar. They've got them Oscars, those 3 Oscars, each of them sitting on their mantles. And maybe now they can go, well, we got that. Now let's make $1 billion film.
Well, they've also got really 7 if you want to count their editorial award and their 3 acting awards.
Oh yeah, the editor's going to get paid.
I mean, and so you look at that, what they've done, and I think though that look, you want to be in a career for a long time. You work with a studio on a big tentpole movie. I don't care who you are, your control is curtailed because of how much is riding for the studio. I mean, Secret Wars, I wouldn't want to go direct a movie if Kevin Feige called me tomorrow and said, Rob, would you direct one of these movies? And I'm like, I don't know.
Got to see the script.
I don't
first.
know. Yeah, I don't know.
Send me a script, Kevin.
Yeah, send me your script, Kevin,
draft.
and I'll read it. I promise, and I'll read it right away because I think, look, I'd much rather be in the position the Daniels are in because they can set themselves up for the next 10 years.
See, you raised a really interesting point that we were talking about the other day, is that right now, like a few years ago, the narrative was every director, and this is true, every director would be dying to do a Marvel film right now. But now it's kind of become a little bit like Star Wars, where it's the directors are now, I don't know that I want to make one of those movies because if it doesn't go well, fans are going to hate me and I'm going to get blamed for it. And it's going to be all this kind of stuff. And that's why like Christopher McQuarrie, who's of course working with Tom Cruise, like he made that statement a while ago saying, Star Wars movie? No, thank you. I've seen how the fans turn on the directors of Star Wars movies. I don't want anything to do with it. And maybe now when we're seeing what happens with all this kind of stuff, looking at some like Avengers Secret Wars is like, what's the upside? Because I see a lot of downside. Because if I go in there and direct those films and it makes less than the other Avengers movies, or it's not completely beloved, does that sabotage? Whereas you go make a smaller film that doesn't work out so well, whatever, you forget about it and you move on. But I don't know, maybe it could be precarious.
I mean, you look at the Daniels and you'd ask them, okay, you guys, you can write your own ticket. Do you want to be Quentin Tarantino or do you want to be Joss Whedon?
Either way, you still go to Georgia and take that meeting.
Or do you ask them, do you want to be Quentin Tarantino or do you want to be the Russo brothers?
Well, but the thing about the Russo brothers is look where they're at now.
I know. Which is one of the reasons I think they might be enticed to come back and do another Marvel
I know.
film. It's tricky and it's whatever. So personally, I think it would be a great idea. I'd love to see that type of energy and personality they have and that talent brought into the MCU right now. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Rob thinks so either.
I think as the world isn't the world a better place though if we get more Quentin Tarantino movies as opposed to more Marvel movies.
Well, the nice thing though is the Daniels are both young guys.
It's true.
They could do both. I mean, which is kind of what I'd love to see. I'd love to see directors like Tarantino.
They could lock that.
Part of the reason I got so excited when the whispers were going around that Tarantino might do a Star Trek film, just I'd love to see those lines crossed a little bit, but that crossing lines doesn't always turn out great. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? What do you think about the idea of Kevin Feige giving the Daniels a call? Do you think the Daniels would do it? Do you think Kevin Feige would even want them? If so, could you see a reality in which it could work? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with that down, let's jump into this, shall we? This isn't so much news as it is a really interesting bit of information to me. So look, everybody is on board with some streaming service, one or the other, just about everybody. Like whether it's all you've got is Netflix, or maybe the only thing you've got is Disney Plus because you got kids, or maybe you're one of those people like me where a streaming service, so I got to have it. And then you go out and you get Hulu and Disney Plus and Amazon Prime, HBO Max, Discovery, Peacock, still hate the name of that network. You got them all, whatever it is. Streaming we're at the forefront right now. It's still the beginning stages of the streaming wars. But this interesting study came out about consumer behavior when it comes to streaming services. And it basically laid out that 41% of people who sign up for a streaming service do so for one specific show. Listen to that number again. 41%, nearly half of people who sign up for a streaming service, whether it's Paramount Plus or whether that's Disney Plus or whether it's HBO Max, they do so for one show. And I remember when I first read that, I kind of thought that can't be true. But then I remembered I signed up immediately for Disney Plus. Why? It wasn't for the library, although they've got a terrific library. I signed up for Disney Plus before it came out, specifically because I wanted to watch The Mandalorian. Now, granted, you can make the argument, well, John, Disney Plus hadn't launched yet. Of course, it only had the one show. Granted, but there are a lot of people who are signing up for Paramount Plus just so they could watch 1923. There are people who signed up for Game of Thrones. A lot of people signed up, for HBO simply because of Game of Thrones. Or then later on Andor, or maybe after that House of the Dragon, or whatever. Sorry, Andor was on Disney Plus, of course. It was very much like an HBO show. And I started thinking about it in consumer behaviors, and I thought, you know what? That's right. Now, the study went on to say that while in the high 90% people were aware of all these different streaming services, huge percentages of them couldn't tell you what shows were on which streaming service. So there's still really a low awareness factor when it comes to what's on what. And so when they know there is a show that I'm supposed to watch, Sylvester Stallone's got this new show where he's a mobster of some kind. What is it, Oscar Part 2? No, I think it's called Tulsa King. And they're like, okay, well, where do I see this new Sylvester Stallone thing? Okay, and then they sign up just for that. I think that is fascinating because I think people like us and people who watch this show, we're a little bit more immersed into it. So we know 5 different shows that are on all the different streaming networks, but this is really interesting to hear. Rob, you know, we've been seeing in the past 6 months to a year that this big initial boom that happened when the pandemic started, that everybody thought everything within 6 months was going to be all streaming, all streamers. They've just gotten a big reality check the last few months that streaming has not turned out to be that magical pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that changes everything. But do you think that maybe this sort of consumer behavior, like just signing up for one show at a time, and then maybe if that show's gone, you get that churn rate, they leave? I don't know. What do you read into this number?
Well, look, I think all anybody cares about, John, is what it is that they're watching. There's no brand loyalty to, say, HBO or Netflix or whatever. It's like there's brand loyalty is to Stranger Things or Game of Thrones, or now it's Tulsa King or it's Yellowstone. Where do I go to get those? And I'll tell you something. It's been further confused because I don't like the Paramount Plus app. So I'll go subscribe to watch Star Trek Picard via Amazon. You know, and Paramount Plus is having handshake issues with certain people's sets and things, so you're not getting the show the way you want to see it. So there's all kinds of things that I think dilute this idea of brands. And the thing is, the studios, look, I think HBO and like Disney Plus knows, the people that subscribe to Disney know what Disney is because they've got kids and it's a family thing. But all these other shows, like, you'd have to stop and think, because Yellowstone's been on other networks. And then they bring it on to Paramount Plus. So what is it? Where do I go to get my...
I've been watching on Peacock, but that's to that point.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You're like, I don't care what streaming service I have to watch it on. I'll go watch it on wherever it is. And then when it's done, I'll turn my streaming service off. So none of this stuff surprises me. And I think that, you know, I get because the studios thought that streaming gives them a guaranteed monthly income, a cash flow that they've never had. We know that through our subscribers, we're going to make $1.5 billion a month times 12. That's great. You know, that's something that what Hollywood studio has ever had that before? And that's what they're expecting streaming to have brought them. What they didn't count on is how fickle consumers are.
Or how expensive it would be to run that. Because it's one thing to say, we know we're going to get $1.5 billion a month. But you forgot it's going to cost you $2.3 billion a month to run that service.
And to make the shows.
Yep.
You know, and it's like people talk about how many shows does Disney Plus? I mean, they're a streaming service that's living off of Marvel shows and Star Wars shows. You know, and maybe a few fun documentaries or then they bring in their animated features from theatrical. You know, and that's good for them, but it's not the guarantee. I mean, look, I think as everybody, they this is the long game, man. And Hollywood always wants all that big upfront cash. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And the studios and the streamers are finding that out.
All right, guys. Question is for you. What do you think about this study that's come out that says 41% of people who sign up to a streaming service literally do it because of one show? Do you think that's indicative of how it's always going to be? Do you think that's still just a sign that we're in the early days of streaming? And what significance, if any, do you take away from that? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, that down. Let's move into this, shall we? You know, not only has March been an exciting time for movie fans, box office results have been pretty damn good. We already saw this month, something like Creed came out, broke the franchise record for biggest opening weekend, not just out of the Creed films, but all the Rocky films. And now we had Scream 6 come out. And it did the same thing. Now, we didn't talk about this on yesterday's show because we were kind of busy talking about, Oscar results. But this past weekend, Scream 6 shattered the franchise box office opening weekend record by opening to $44 million in its opening weekend. To put that in context, the last Scream film, which I quite enjoyed, Scream 5, opened to 30. This is like a 50% increase from one year to the next. And I'll tell you what, now look, I did not like Scream 6 as much as I like Scream 5, but it's probably my second favorite Scream movie. I had a good time with it. They do some really infuriating horror film Scream tropes that drive me crazy, but overall, again, like Scream 5, I had fun. It was a good time, and I enjoyed myself. Now, the question then comes up is, it's not often that you get a franchise that gets into its fourth or fifth film and you see the box office of it go up. Normally, you're just talking about hanging on, still trying to make some money, unless you're a Marvel franchise. But even then, look at Ant-Man, it just dropped. But it's like it's found a new version of itself, a new life at $44 million for this little Scream franchise. By the way, a Scream franchise that came out without its main star, without Sydney. Now, granted, this isn't a Black Panther situation where one was a massive blockbuster worldwide hit and then you had to move on without them. This is a very long, decades-long running series where Sydney has and has not been a significant character. Still, they didn't have Sydney in this one, and that was well publicized. So I wondered if some of the controversy might keep some people away from it. It clearly did not. And it did really stupid well. So listen, there's one real Scream fan in the office.
Yeah.
And that, of course, is Ray. Taylor. Taylor, quickly, as the one bona fide Scream fan in here, let me just ask you straight up. Why do you think more people came out to see the debut of this Scream than ever came out to see a Scream film before in its opening weekend?
It's the characters they're introducing, that core four, as they have called themselves, with Jenna Ortega, who's on fire, Melissa Barrera, it's Mason Gooding, and it's Jasmine Savoy Brown. The core four are amazing. They do, Neve Campbell is my Scream queen. She's my favorite horror icon, but they fill that gap that she left, the void, and I just love the core four. It's funny you mentioned, so Scream 6 is the sixth movie in the franchise. Puss in Boots 2, The Last Wish, is the sixth movie in the Shrek franchise. So
and lo and behold, they're doing so. But here's the thing, though. Remember, people did not know the movie was good.
Right.
Why did they flock out to find out? Why did they rush out to the opening weekend to see this movie like 50% more than they did for Scream 5? Was it something in Scream 5, do you think? Was it something in the marketing? What did you think?
I think it's a combination. I think it's Scream 5 set up Scream 6 perfectly. If there was a sports analogy with tennis, I would do it, but I don't know sports. And I just feel like they just set up whatever it is, they spiked it.
Is that why your dad left?
Yeah. Okay. He left because I hit the tennis ball and he's still after that ball. Okay. Well, aren't we all? So I just got to say, Scream 5 set it up perfectly. The marketing has been great. And I was talking to Rob earlier this morning. There is something in the trailer, I will not give it away, that they set up, and then it plays out completely differently in the movie, and it blew my mind. I could not believe it. I was like, oh my God, I thought I knew exactly how this was going to play out, but that trailer is cut in a very specific way. I'm just so proud of both of my six my two favorite franchises, Shrek and Scream. Who else can say that? So exciting.
They're doing well right now. Rob, I don't think you had a chance to go see Scream 6.
I did.
You did?
I did.
Well, I was going to say, regardless of whether you saw it or not, what do you attribute that? It's not a small. This is a massive, because you can say it's just like a $14 million jump, but that's a 50% jump from last time. What do you attribute that to?
You know what I would say? These movies don't suck. I mean, I think that's when it comes the horror franchises that run a long period of time are a law of diminishing returns. They get worse as they move along. And look, as much as I like the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, people might say that the sequels peaked with Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Even though there's stuff to be had in 4 and 5 and Freddy's the New Nightmare. But these movies have stayed contemporary, and I think that they've delivered to the audience a satisfying experience at the movies. Say, look at the Halloween trilogy that Blumhouse put out. Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, not the greatest. And didn't deliver this movie has great kills, vicious, bloody. And it's got great characters that you like. And when you come out of the movie, you don't feel like, well, that kind of sucked. I came out of this movie going, that was really good. And that's what people want from movies. And the fact that this franchise works as well as it does over the course, this is kind of like the Mission Impossible franchise in that it's been running for like 2 decades. So it's amazing that it's as good as it is. And that's, I think, what it delivers. What do people want with their franchises? They want a familiarity that also doesn't disappoint. And that's what this franchise is doing.
All right, guys, question is for you. Scream 6 ended up shattering the record for the franchise. Why do you think the box office, the last couple of films, has gone up like that? Did you see the film? Did you enjoy it? What do you attribute the success to? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with that down, let's get into our final topic here, shall we? And that one is this. We were talking earlier about Last of Us. And of course, it just had, sadly, its finale. It bums me out, man. That bums me out. Sundays, I don't have NFL football right now, and I don't have Last of Us. So I don't know what to do with myself on Sundays now. But The Last of Us had its finale. It was a fantastic finale. But now we're also getting a sense of the numbers. You want to tell if a show's going well? Do the ratings go up as the season goes on, or do they plateau and drop? Throughout The Last of Us, the numbers have gone up, and that hit peaked in the finale, scoring the biggest reach that it had in the series so far, with 8.2 million viewers watching it on the night that it dropped. Now, those numbers will go up. The overall viewers of this episode will go up because this is a streaming show. It's on HBO Max. Guessing anywhere between 20 and 30 million people will probably end up watching the finale when it's all said and done. But on the night that it dropped, it set a record for itself for 8.2 million viewers. By the way, as if that wasn't impressive enough on its own, that's 8.2 million viewers while dropping on the same night as the Oscars. That sucked in 18 point something million viewers. And yet, Last of Us managed to hit the number 1 episode of its year with 8.2 million viewers watching it that night. That is insane. That is incredible. And more than that, I think that is a great testament to the absolute success that this show has been. Because not only have people loved the show, but with the increasingly climbing numbers, what does that tell us? It tells us, number 1, that people loved it and kept coming back. But it tells us that, number 2, not only have people loved and kept coming back, they told other people about it. And every single week, new viewers jumped on board. And then you hit the finale that was going against the Oscars, the number 1 broadcast of the year that isn't something called the NFL. And it was still managed to pull in its top numbers. Now, look, we can talk about, which we did yesterday on the open spoiler discussion, about the dilemma that we as audiences face, that did we agree with what Joel did or did we not? We can talk about, whether they had the perfect amount of infected action in it or whether they should have had a little bit more. We can talk about, is episode 3 one of the top 5 greatest episodes of television of all time? We can talk about all that kind of stuff, but we have already. Just these numbers, if you needed to know anything about how much people embraced and loved this show, it's these numbers. Because you don't get these numbers without people, number 1, staying with the show, and number 2, getting more and more people to come to it week after week after week after week. And this is just an incredible accomplishment for it. I am thrilled for this show's success, because how often do we come across shows or movies that we love and nobody really knows about them and they never get the attention that they deserve? This deserved every single viewer it got. This deserves every single accolade it's going to get. This turned my Sunday nights for the past couple of months into absolute circle the calendar. I'm busy that night because The Last of Us is on, and I could not be happier for its success. Anyway, Rob, you saw these numbers. What do you attribute like these incredible numbers for this HBO series?
Well, I mean, because it's great. And, you know, I think what also it tapped into the obviously the gaming audience, the pre-existing gaming audience. You know, everyone skeptically tuned in thinking, you know, video game adaptations suck. And then this provided, we talked about it early on, that this show is something different than the video game. You know, it actually provides a really satisfying, dramatic experience. Even if you played the game, I mean, once you are acclimate to how the changes are different, you're getting a really interesting show, a meaningful show, a show that, you know, is about this familial, this father-daughter developing story that surviving in this kind of a world. And John, it's just a great show. And I think it's been surprising for audiences that were anticipating it and for audiences that never played the game. They've gone on the same journey that the gamers already knew was a satisfying experience. And look, for me, I watched the Oscars, and as soon as I was done, I turned this on, you know, and I couldn't wait to watch this final episode. And again, the final episode delivered. I mean, it was too short. I could have watched 2 hours this. You know, when it was over, I'm like, damn. But it ended. I mean, I knew kind of what was coming, and it satisfied. And it how often do you get something? I mean, it seems like looking back, John, 9 episodes, it seemed like this was just a couple hours and it was over.
Yeah.
You know, and it's been 9 weeks. Come on now.
Yeah.
I'm closer to death if this is the way my life's how fast my life's going by. I mean, this was great entertainment. I couldn't wait. I really anticipated this show, and it always delivered. Always delivered.
I wanted to point this out because, Jonathan, you had these pictures of the giraffes up earlier. One of the funniest things the last couple of days since the episode aired was seeing people online going, oh, the CGI in the giraffe was so fake, was so bad. And I remember because we were sitting down watching it. Now you got to remember, I told the story last night, but a couple of years ago, I took Ray and Ann up to Canada with me. Went up to the Campea Ranch and whatever. And there's a place near Hamilton. Yeah, leave the shot. There's this place in Hamilton, right by Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, which is home for me, called the African Lion Safari, where you literally get in your car and it's like Jurassic Park. You go through the gate and you drive through the animal exhibit. The monkeys come up onto your car. The lions will literally just walk right up to you. It makes you a little bit nervous when they start sniffing your tires. But still, the lions will come right up. But we hit a spot in the African Lion Safari where the giraffes came right in and stuck their head right in, and you know, the little Ritz cracker for the giraffe and whatever. And Ray was going, man, that looks just like the giraffes when we went to the African Lion Safari. I'm like, yeah, man, that looks really real. But I'm reading these comments and people saying, man, the CGI on that giraffe is so fake. Turns out it's a real giraffe. They actually, you had the picture up there, the blue screen.
Yeah, I get it.
They actually got the Calgary Zoo to let them build a blue screen facade within the enclosure of where the giraffes were. They didn't bring the giraffes out to a set. They actually built the blue stuff around them, and they actually shot a real giraffe. And it just made me go back and read those comments. Oh, the CGI on that giraffe was so bad. Oh, it was so bad. It's like, okay. I mean, I didn't know it was real either, but I thought it looked pretty damn real. I thought it looked great, but that was kind of funny. And you know what? Such an amazing moment. Again, one of the things I loved about The Last of Us this season was the way they constantly emphasized in this world that has gone to hell, this world that is plunged into darkness. This was a show that celebrated and highlighted finding the moments of beauty in the world that made them so even something as simple as like this little girl coming across a giraffe, like whose heart didn't warm? And it was because of the contrast of the darkness of the world. Anyway, I just thought that was absolutely brilliant. Anyway, guys, question is for you. Last of Us season finale ended with the top numbers it had, despite the fact of it going head to head with the Oscars, which also had their biggest numbers. I mean, it's damn impressive what it did. What did you guys think about it? What do you attribute that success to? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that out of the way, we are now going to move on and start taking your live questions. If you got a question, thought, theory, or opinion you'd like us to address, go ahead. We're opening up the super chats now. Go ahead and use those now and fire them in. Do it quickly, though, because we only leave the super chats open for just a couple of minutes. Now, before we get to those, we want to take another second and thank the main sponsor of the John Campea Show, Ryan Reynolds' own Mint Mobile. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. If saving more and spending less is one of your top goals for 2023, why are you still paying insane amounts of money every month for your phone bill? Switching to Mint Mobile is the easiest way to save this year. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know I made the switch over to Mint Mobile a while ago. The process couldn't have been easier, and I can't believe that I am spending less than a third of what I was spending on one of the other major carriers before. By going online only and eliminating the traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and switch easily in minutes with eSIM. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you, of course, to our friends at Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show, and of course, being my best mobile service provider I've ever had. All right. With that down, guys, let's now go over and start taking your live comments and questions that you guys are firing in now. Rob, what do we got up there first?
Our friend King Tantic says over or under 50% Transformers opens to 100 million domestic.
Under. I think it looks good, but there's still a lot of Transformers trepidation, so under that.
I agree with that.
Not impossible, but under.
Stub McShave says, I think everything everywhere all at once wouldn't have been as good with a $200 million budget. Limitations breeds creativity, and big FX sometimes takes away from the story being told. I would agree with that.
The key word in that stubble is sometimes. Sometimes. I don't think in the hands of the Daniels that would have been the case. I 100% agree with you. Limitation breeds creativity. That's this thing I used to say back in my teenage years when we were talking about role-playing games, and sometimes our DMs would go a little bit too wild. Say, look, limitations breeds creativity. So I like that a lot. But I think in the hands of the Daniels, I think they could have done some pretty spectacular stuff. If they, maybe not a $200 million budget, but I think in their hands, I think they could have done something pretty fun. All right, what's next?
Jeff says the 41% stat helps writers who say 8 to 10 episode seasons aren't enough. If streamers produce 16 to 20 episodes, you keep subscribers and please many writers. I'm biased. I like longer seasons. I think, hey, listen, for 70 years, TV writers managed to create great television shows that had 20 plus episodes a season. And this whole, whenever this comes up, somebody always inevitably throws back, well, if you do more than 8 episodes, you're just going to get a bunch of filler episodes. I can point to a lot of TV shows where that wasn't the case. Yeah, every once in a while. But if you've got a really great show with great characters, let's take Supernatural, for example. I love Supernatural. Did it have in its 22 plus episode seasons a filler now and again? Sure it did now and again. But I still loved watching it because they had great characters with great dialogue that I enjoyed hanging out with. And I'm not saying shows today have to be 24 episodes, but Rob, I got to tell you, man, I mean, I'd like to see these longer than these 8 episode things, but I agree. I would too.
I can't argue that. I mean, look, we got House of Dragon. That was fantastic. Look what we had with Andor. That was fantastic. Look what we just had with Last of Us. I can't argue with results. I would just like to see those results, but with more episodes. That's
Agreed.
Just me. All right, what's next?
Sam Fisher says, after the Oscars, I need a short round cameo in Indy 5 Dial of Destiny now more than ever. They can't do reshoots over a day or 3 and add him.
That would be honestly, I think that would be pathetic. Because again, why? This actor's really hot right now. Let's change our movie and just shoehorn them in for no reason whatsoever. I don't personally like that at all. And I don't think James Mangold is the type of guy who will do it. Now, listen, I also won't drop from shock if we find out that a year and a half ago, they did film a scene with Ke Huy Quan just because they thought it would be a great idea. What I don't think they would do, and what I don't think they should do, is go, hey, Ke is really hot right now. Just let's, for no narrative reason, for nothing that serves the movie, let's just shoehorn him in. I don't think that James Mangold would do that, and I would hope he wouldn't do that. I don't know, Rob, could you see an advantage to it?
Well, I first think, how do we know they didn't do that?
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. Maybe they planned on that a
Yeah.
long time ago and did it anyway.
But I think that, look, to me, if it's a good story point, if it works story-wise, why not? I'm always there for me, I don't like things being shoehorned in just to be like, hey, look, we shoehorned in him. But if there was a moment that made sense, I think that would be fine. We've got Sala coming back. We've got other people coming back.
But that was all pre-planned as they were
Yes.
making the story. If they did the same thing with Ke Huy Quan, I'm all for it.
I have had suspicions for a while. This was before even the run-up that he's in the script, he's in the film, and they're not showing it.
Yeah,
it had
and if
nothing
that's
to
the
do-
case, I'm all for it.
and nothing to do with the hype right now.
Although in his interviews, he did just win an Academy Award for acting, but in his interviews, he does talk about seeing Harrison Ford
But
for the first
time, right?
in 34 years.
But-
and I'm like,
But I also feel like those have been planned.
yes.
Is that just Andrew Garfield swearing he's not in the new Spider-Man movie?
And I don't know, because if they were planning it, boy, they did a good job.
All right. By the way, can I throw some out there? Real 3 tinfoil hats stacked on top of each other thing here. You notice at the Academy Awards that Jimmy Kimmel referenced Spider-Man's here, and the camera cut to Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
Was that just a reference to the fact that he had played Spider-Man? Or was there a little something there that maybe he is still Spider-Man? Again, that's 3 tinfoil hats stacked on top of each other.
His smirk was pretty interesting.
His smirk was very interesting.
I mean, you say it once, that's coincidence, but he did it more than once.
Yeah, so I don't know. Were they giving a little bit of foreshadowing? Again, tinfoil hat on top of tinfoil
Ray
hat.
told me earlier that he believes that he is.
All right, what's next?
Suthius says, Mr. B, a week ago, you commented on my name. It came about in high school. Gladiator had just opened, and because they had seen it, my friends started calling me Suthius Maximus. My real name is just Sooth.
That's, you know what? Sometimes people write in stories like that and they're really boring. That's a fun story.
It is a fun
I like
story.
that. That the name that he goes by now is actually connected to one of the greatest movies of all time. That's a great story. I loved hearing that.
I wonder if he's husband to a murdered wife or a father to a murdered son.
And he might get his vengeance in this life or the next. All right, what's next?
Amin says, thank God Last of Us was a weekly release. Just imagine if it dropped the full season at once like Netflix. I could never understand that.
Okay. You just spoke to a very important talk to me. Again, we were just talking about The Last of Us. You have a great show. And what happens? Week after week after week, people keep talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. More people join on, more people join on, more people join on. They had dropped it on Netflix. We would have been going, that was awesome for a week. And then we wouldn't be talking about it. And half the people who discovered it wouldn't have discovered it. Netflix has got to change their terrible model.
And I keep bringing up marketing, like merchandise, but when Stranger Things, the last season came out, my girls tried to go to like Hot Topic to get some shirts and stuff. This was only a couple weeks after everyone binged it. They're like, we don't have any.
Yeah.
You could stretch out your merchandising. Merchandising.
All right, what's next?
Amin goes on to say, I think the casting of Abby and other supporting characters is going to be key. They don't all need to be big names, but I do think that Abby should be.
It's going to be interesting. By the way, I found out afterwards, some of our viewers pointed out to me that in the final scene, as Joel goes into the operating room, that one of the nurses in there was the actress who mocapped and voiced Abby in the second game. I thought that was another nice little touch that they had in there. I actually thought, if you had bet me $5 before the finale started, I actually thought we were going to get an Abby appearance. Even at the end, just running in and go, Dad, or something like that, right? I actually thought we would have gotten an Abby appearance, but they stuck to the game and they did not. But I thought it was pretty cool that they had the Abby actress in there. All right, what's next?
Matt Sanders says Elvis didn't win anything. Serious. Oh, this is a $20
Oh,
super
thank
chat
you,
from
Matt.
Elvis didn't win anything. Seriously, got snubbed a bit. It was hard for Best Actor, but not even costumes or cinematography. Tell me why I'm wrong. Ha, thanks.
Well, first of all, Matt, first of all, the job of being a radar technician is highly underrated, so thank you for your service. Secondly, it didn't deserve to win those categories. I mean, remember, a lot of people look at the Oscars as if they dole out who gets what. I was like, well, Elvis is really good. It deserves to win one or two. Well, let's give it this one. No, every single category is its own competition. And the costumes in Elvis were fantastic. They weren't as good as the costumes in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And I would suggest they weren't as good as the costumes in All Quiet on the Western Front either. Like, they were fantastic. Great. The cinematography in it was fantastic. But it wasn't the best cinematography of the year. I mean, so that's the thing about, Rob, we talk about it all the time. The Oscars are the single most difficult thing you can possibly win, because it's not about how good you do. It's about how good everybody else does too. And it's hard.
And also, when you talk about costumes, with Elvis, they had something to emulate.
Right.
Whereas in Wakanda Forever, they had to make that stuff up. I mean, Ruth Carter won a second award for building on the costume she already won an Oscar on. By the way, I should mention that we did interview her on this.
Yep. If you go down into our, we have a Designing Hollywood playlist, and we've got our interview with her from just a couple of months ago. After she found out she was nominated for an Academy Award this year, she's won it now not 2 years in a row, but this is 2 films in a row. She won the Academy Award for the first Black Panther, and she won it again.
And she's the first Black woman in Oscar history to win
have
2 Oscars.
Yep. Huge. By the way, her acceptance speech was great, but I admit, at first, as she started her acceptance speech, I thought, Ruth's kind of full of herself. Because if you go back and listen to the wording of her speech, I first thought she was talking about herself. I accept this as a warrior queen, as a powerful this. I'm like, well, you are all those things, but then I realized at the end, she's talking about her mother. And I thought, oh my God, that is so beautiful and so powerful.
Yeah.
It's so well deserving.
She was very, I mean, if you watch the interview, she is very much the kind of person that credits her staff and all the people that she collaborates with.
Yeah, always has. All right, what's next?
Giovanni says, all right, what's next?
Well,
that is the thing.
Mr. No Days Off is next.
Vess, a.k.a. Mr. No Days Off, says, did you see that there's going to be a bonus episode of The Last of Us with behind-the-scenes stuff? Bring on the filthy.
Here's the thing, though. I saw the headline said there's going to be a bonus episode of The Last of Us.
Yeah.
And I got all excited. But then when I read into it, now correct me if I'm wrong, but when I read into it, it's like, it's not a bonus episode. It's a behind-the-scenes kind of thing.
And it's up.
So that is different from a bonus episode, because Sandman had a bonus episode. This is not a bonus episode. This is the same thing that they do for after a Marvel show. They put out their little, what do we call that, Marvel Legends or something, when they talk about the making of. So the term bonus episode is not quite accurate, because damn, that got me excited when I first read it. All right, what's next?
Guzman says, hot take. Michael B. Jordan and Creed 3 are currently on pace to dominate the 2023 Oscars.
No chance. No chance. I really, really like Creed 3. And Michael B. Jordan did a fine job directing that as his first directorial effort. Absolutely. He's not going to be nominated for Best Actor out of anything, it's a good movie, but I'd say anything that has a chance might be Jonathan Majors for supporting actor. Maybe. But I don't see any others. The costumes were good, but it's not going to be Oscar nominated. The cinematography was good. It's not going to be Oscar nominated. It's not going to be nominated for Best Picture. Michael B. Jordan's not going to be nominated for Best Actor. So
Do you guys think there's any front runners this early in the year right now? Like anyone that you would say, well, that's at least a nomination.
I have a hard time remembering what came out since January. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't know. That's a great question, but I don't know off the top of my head. All right, what's next?
Calvin Patel says the Daniels have a 5-year deal with Universal, which means they can do a Fast and Furious and Jurassic Park crossover. Automatic $1 billion.
What do they have? Is it a first look deal?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because that would make sense if it's first look deal. By the way, remember, with first look deals, that does not mean that they are prohibited from directing things for other people. So with a first look deal, let's say Rob has, I never know how to pronounce, Ludovico, which is of course from Clockwork Orange.
The Ludovico technique. It's a name.
So Rob has a company called Ludovico. And let's say that I sign a first look deal with Rob's Ludovico. Now that means, what the first look deal means is that if I come up with a concept for a movie I want to do, and actually this is true, I actually signed a first look deal once before, but I come up with an idea for a show or a movie or whatever I got to do. The first look deal means that the first person that gets the option as to whether to produce and make that movie would be Ludovico, because I have a first look deal. Now, Rob can look at the project and say, wow, with all his other mountains of scripts around him, and he can look at this project I bring and he can say, this is truly horrible shit. Get this out of my sight. Now, if he does that,
A common reaction.
then I am now free to take it to Jonathan Voico's production company.
Yeah.
And he may look and say, okay, yeah, cool, let's make this. And we can make it. So even though I had a first look deal with Ludovico, it can still happen somewhere else. Or what often happens under a first look deal is that Ray can come to me. Ray owns a production company, and he comes to me and says, hey, I've got this project I want made. Will you direct it? Well, then that's not a first look deal. That has nothing to do with anything I came up with. So I could actually still end up making that if I want to. But that's why you could still see the Daniels directing things for other people. Maybe because they come up with an option for a movie that Universal passes on, or maybe another studio comes to them and says, hey, we've got a project of our own. Would you direct it? And they have the option to do that. All right. What's next?
All right. Well, you can't read this, so I'm going to read this for now, but this people on screen can see it. Matt Boyle. So I watched Patrick Swayze marathon, and I believe Roadhouse is better than Point Break, and Ghost is better than Dirty Dancing. What are your guys' thoughts?
Roadhouse is not better than Point Break.
But don't look at me. I'm not the one who said it. I read it.
Come on, man.
I agree with you, Rob, but I think it's closer than you might think. Roadhouse is not as now, I love Point Break. There wouldn't be Fast and the Furious without Point Break, but I love Point Break. Johnny Utah. But Roadhouse is what's that?
Bodie is the name of Patrick Swayze's
yes, it
character.
Is. Bodie.
Like Bodie
but
Tree.
Roadhouse. I fuck guys like you in prison. Roadhouse is so good. Sam Elliott. I mean, that movie is so freaking good. And listen, they've got a Roadhouse remake coming out. See Jake Gyllenhaal.
I know. He's and the way they're shooting at the MMA fights.
Yep.
Doing.
I think it's going to be really good. I
think Jake Gyllenhaal's Roadhouse is going to smoke the original Roadhouse.
You think?
I think it is.
Tall order, man.
But then what about, Dirty Dancing and Ghost? I mean, Ghost is a great movie.
I think Ghost is better than Dirty Dancing.
I do too.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, what's next?
All right.
James Argenta says tonight's Mando episode is directed by Lee Isaac Chung, who directed Minari.
Ooh.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. All right.
I don't know. Why am I freezing on who I was going to ask? What is her first name? Again, Jurassic World girl.
Bryce
Dallas Howard. Thank you. I was thinking it's Ron Howard's daughter. Okay.
Redhead.
Is she directing an episode this year? Because I think she might be my favorite Mandalorian director. But I don't know if she's directing an episode this year or not.
She must. Right?
I hope she does. Because she did, her season 1 stuff was great. The stuff she did the best episode last year. I love her. I think she's a terrific Star Wars director.
According to The Hollywood Reporter, she is directing an episode for season 3.
Yes. I seriously, I absolutely her. Now, maybe that has something to do with the fact that she grew up with Uncle George. That, of course, Ron Howard and George were very, very close. And so she grew up knowing George Lucas and all that kind of stuff. But I honestly think she's my favorite Mandalorian director so far. All right, what's next?
Matt W. says, I recently rewatched the Man of Steel teaser that was shown before Dark Knight Rises in IMAX. What a great teaser, especially with Crow's Jor-El voiceover.
There's something in the sun. You will lead them into the sun or something like that. Yeah, I remember. Look, back in those days, Marvel was clearly kicking DC's ass all over the place. But two things that the DC movies did better than the Marvel movies. Number one, score. I still contend in that whole era, there were some exceptions here and there, but generally speaking, the score in DC movies were usually better than the score in the Marvel movies. Secondly, trailers. They made great trailers. Like I still think a top 5 greatest trailer of all time is that first Comic-Con Batman versus Superman trailer. Dude, I pretty much pissed myself.
Yeah.
When that trailer came out, you see like Batman standing there in the stormy sky and the lightning flashing, and you see the silhouette of Superman in the air with the eyes red. Oh, give this to me and inject it straight into my veins. I mean, they made trailers that were so good. And yeah, Man of Steel teaser stuff was right up there too.
I mean, I even liked, do you remember the Superman Returns?
Oh, yes.
Teaser that came out with Marlon Brando voicing over?
Oh yeah.
I love that one.
I like, again, I don't care what anybody else thinks. I like Superman Returns. Just the one thing about it was a really good movie that really wasn't a very good comic book movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But other than that, and Brandon Routh, to this day, I love Brandon Routh. I thought he was a great Superman. Enjoyed it a lot. All right, what's next?
Sub McShave says, where are the new drama shows on Netflix? Where's the new The Crown or similar shows? How many recent big Netflix shows can you think of? That's a good question.
Listen, I don't know. I don't have a list of all the Netflix shows in front of me or anything like that. I'm sure there have been a lot of them, but I don't have them there. But yeah, they don't seem to right now. But look, the biggest thing on streaming last year was Stranger Things. Now, that wasn't drama, but they're doing all right. Netflix is doing okay. They just they're in the process now of learning to pare down of making just anything and trying to stick with some of the better stuff.
Although I'd say the You.
Ooh, Use. Yeah.
That hits this week.
Yep.
And that has Ed Speleers, who's also playing
And
Jack
loves that.
Crusher on Star Trek Picard.
Yeah,
We just
Ann
got Wednesday.
loves that show.
And Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday was
Wednesday.
big.
I don't know if I call it Wednesday a drama per se, but
No, but it's in the zeitgeist. So.
but You, I would consider a drama for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. All right, what's next?
Walter White Walker says D&D is at 90%. The D&D movie.
Dungeons
is
and
at
Dragons,
90%. March be the best reviewed, highest rated month of movies we've ever had. Maybe
yes, maybe no. But listen, the reviews for Shazam are coming out. They're sounding fantastic. Scream 6 was well reviewed. Creed, well reviewed. John Wick 4, well reviewed. D&D is sitting at 9%. Listen, because it's John Wick and I already love the franchise so much, I'll still say that's probably the film I'm looking forward to seeing the most. But very close on its heels is Dungeons and Dragons.
I'll tell you, John, that third trailer was great.
All the trailers have been great.
And that movie does look like it's a lot of fun. I thought for sure it was going to come out with a critic review of like 50.
Listen, if you had asked me a couple of months ago, I would have said, you know what? This looks great. It feels like people actually playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons. I can't wait to see it, but it's probably going to be a 45% movie. But seeing that the critics are really liking and enjoying it, we're seeing it on Sunday. It's going to be a good couple of days. I get to see Shazam on Thursday, and I get to go see freaking Dungeons and Dragons on Sunday. I am very excited about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be great. All right, what's next?
Motossum says, you do know that Daredevil and Punisher series have moved to Disney Plus with all the R-rated guts and blood.
Yeah, but there's a huge difference between we'll move something that was made 4 years ago onto the service. And that is, by the way, not in the same universe as as the MCU. By the way, we were talking yesterday, Rob, about they've recast the Vanessa character.
Yeah.
Of course, the Foggy actor is not going to be on the show. The Karen actor is not going to be on the show. All this kind of stuff. It's a different universe. There's a big difference from taking somebody else's produced stuff and then moving it over to our MCU producing that content. Kevin Feige was very, very clear when they were talking to him about Blade and stuff like that, and the possibility of maybe Blade being rated R. Kevin Feige was unambiguous. We don't make R-rated stuff, period, except Deadpool. That's the only exception he made. He said, Marvel is not going to be getting into the habit of making R-rated stuff, with the one exception of being Deadpool, and that's it. So if you're thinking the new Daredevil is going to be rated R, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Now, of course, Kevin Feige is a human being, and human beings can change their minds. It can happen, but I've seen no indication that he's going to do that. And he said that already knowing that they were going to be doing Daredevil. So don't expect an R-rated anything coming out of Daredevil. I know, Rob, do you disagree?
No, I don't. I mean, that he, like you said, he said that. And the thing about Deadpool is you have the previously existing films that they brought over from Fox. They're just continuing a franchise that already exists. Whereas they can chalk up even though they brought over the Netflix Marvel shows to Disney Plus, they didn't make those shows.
Right.
You know, it was a different deal, so.
All right, what's next?
Amin says, an Oscar category I think was a big surprise was All Quiet, winning production design as opposed to Avatar, which I really thought should have won.
I think there's an argument for that, but I was not stunned that All Quiet on the Western Front won that, because the production design is the thing that immerses you into the world that you're watching. Whether you're watching The Crown or whether you're watching Avatar or whether you're watching All Quiet on the Western Front. And it was impeccable. Like, never once did I ever question in the back of my mind, I'm looking at World War I. Like, I never questioned it. It was almost perfect.
Yeah.
But again, I think there's a very strong argument for Avatar winning that award too, but I have zero complaints about winning that award. I know, what did you think about that, Rob?
No, I totally agree with you. I thought, and again, you know, the production design of a period piece or a fantasy film, it's 6 1/2 of the other. I thought Avatar did a great job, but it had been done before. You know, yeah, we saw the sea version of the Na'vi, and we saw but recreating World War I, that's I mean, they did a great, like you said, an impeccable job. I mean, that's a tough call.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
James Freeman says, what do you think of Roger Deakins' comment in Deadline that the best cinematography of 2022 work on The Batman and Top Gun Maverick weren't even nominated for Oscars due to snobbery in Hollywood?
Okay, so the one thing, with all due respect to Roger Deakins, it's the cinematographers who nominated. It's the cinematographers. It wasn't Hollywood executives. It wasn't the actors. Nobody else made the nomination list except for the cinematographers. The cinematographers are the ones who come. Remember how the Oscar nominations work, right? There are a bunch of different branches of the Academy, including an actor's branch, a director's branch, a writer's branch, a music branch, blah, 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 on and on. There's a cinematography branch made up of cinematographers and who are members of the Academy. And it is the cinematographers themselves who came up with the nominee list. Now, once the nominee list is put together, then the whole Academy votes on the nominee list. But it's the actors who make the acting nominations. It's the directors who make the directing nominations. It's all that kind of stuff. So, all due respect to Roger Deakins, it's not Hollywood snobbery. It's your people. It's the cinematographers. Rogers, talk to them. They're the ones who made the nomination list. So, I mean, it is what it is. And so, at the end of the day, while Rogers is one of the greatest cinematographers of all time, he's a Mount Rushmore cinematographer, no doubt about it. But his is one opinion. And guess what? You know who else is on the Academy cinematography branch? Roger Deakins. He's on that branch. It was your people, Roger. Your people made the list. So you should have talked to them. I don't know. I don't know, Rob. What do you think about that?
Well, I think you know what I think. He maybe snobbery wasn't the right word to use. I think he was thinking more along the lines of, Batman and Top Gun are these popcorn. I mean, when you say Batman, and he said the Batman had the best cinematography. I think.
And by the way, for the record, I thought it should have gotten a nomination. I agree. I
agree too. I think that what he meant was that, there is that Oscar thing. Like we have to go for those prestige movies, and that maybe he was thinking that people sometimes don't look at just how good something is in a Batman movie because it's part of a long running comic book franchise. So, well, wait a minute, we can't just nominate that. And same with
Top Gun won an Oscar.
I know, and I know, but that's because I read his comments about the Batman, and I got to tell you, the more I watch that movie, the more I like that movie.
God, I love that movie.
You're both welcome, by the way.
Yeah, the cinematography is incredible. I think that's kind of what he was saying, though, that sometimes movies don't get a fair shake, even though everyone knows they're good. But you're right, John. We both thought. I thought that Claudio should have got a nomination for Top Gun. I mean, they had to build cameras to stick in cameras that didn't exist.
Oh, I agree. But again, Top Gun, not only was it nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards, it won an Oscar this year. So you can't just fall back on the old tired, well, Hollywood's just snobbish against the big hit film. It took home an Oscar.
Right.
It was nominated for Best Picture. Batman should have as well, though. If I had a vote, I would have done it. But I wasn't in the room where they decided who was getting the cinematography nominated. You know who was in the room? Roger Deakins was in the room. So, I mean, I get it, and I agree. It's just that it was your people, Roger. It wasn't a bunch of other snobs. It was your cinematographer peers that did it. Anyway, all right, what's next?
Alessa sends in a super chat.
Oh, thank you so much for that.
The Fault in Our Death Stars says Gotham Knights is coming out tonight.
Oh, God.
I guess it's game day. I want to see how bad it likely is. I'm not hating it or anything. I just don't have much faith in it.
I woke up this morning. Every once in a while, in life, you face choices that you need to make. And I woke up this morning, realized this, God damn it. Gotham Knights or Mandalorian? What am I going to watch today?
It's a Sophie's choice, John.
I'm torn. No, there's no torn. I am not going to give this show 1 second of my viewership. Now, that's not in principle. I just think it looks like a bag of horse shit. But I thought the same thing about Harley Quinn. So listen, if a bunch of you guys later tonight write to me and say, you know what, John, it was surprisingly good, then I might go check it out. But as of right now, I have zero belief. And the guy who played Castiel in Supernatural, Misha, I can't remember what Misha's last name is, but the guy who's playing a younger Commissioner Gordon, I think that's his role in it. I love him. But yeah, it looks beyond horrible. Like pimple on my ass that you can't reach. Horrible. No. And I have no plans of dedicating one moment of my viewership to that, unless our viewers tell us that it's good. And maybe then I'll check it out. I don't know. Rob, you got your snacks all lined up for watching Gotham Knights tonight?
Yeah, I've got friends coming over. We're gonna have a trivia contest beforehand. We're making some special Gotham burgers tonight. I'll tell you.
Yeah, Ray was calling me. Say, Ray called me and said, John, what should I bring over to barbecue tonight? What? You know what? Let me give some kudos to Ray. So we are watching the Oscars and Last of Us on Sunday night. And Ray, Chef Pleasures, is so dedicated to his craft that he showed up at my house 4 hours early with a fresh, brand new, big propane tank, all filled.
Yeah, baby, about to sniff that.
fresh from Home Depot, so that the barbecue would be fully primed and ready to go.
And did it work out for you?
Oh my God, did it ever?
It did work out for you.
Because Ray made some Korean short rib that I am still touching myself over. It was so good. It was so good.
Wait, what?
Wow.
Anyway, okay, what's next?
Fanimator says, I've now seen Top Gun Maverick 19 times
Oh my
in a
God.
theater. 19 times.
Well, hey, if you love something, enjoy it. Why not?
It's an addiction now.
There you go.
All right, what's next?
Just Sub 32 says, rewatching The Last of Us, it reminds me so much of Cormac McCarthy's The Road.
Which one is that?
The Road's the one with Viggo Mortensen, where him
Oh,
and the kid,
yeah.
one of the most uplifting, joyful movies
Oh,
you'll ever
yeah. No,
see.
for those you aren't catching on, that is sarcasm.
I read that book, dude. I wanted to shoot myself in the face when it was over.
Wow.
The trailers were also a little misleading for it too, because that movie got darker and more depressing than I anticipated it was going to be.
Wow.
Yeah. But Viggo, listen, I'll tell you what, whether it's movies like that, where it's the one he plays the Russian mafia guy,
Eastern Promises.
Eastern Promise, whether it's that, Eastern Promises, History of Violence, like Viggo Mortensen, like masters those types of roles. Like he's great in those. Anyway, all right, what's next?
Giovanni says, all right, what's next?
There you go.
Okay.
Jake Clark says, I hope to get Florence Pugh as Abby in The Last of Us Season 2.
It doesn't need to be Florence Pugh, but I'll tell you what, if they announced Florence Pugh was playing Abby, I'd be down. That's by the way, maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. Right before we started the show, I saw a piece of news come across the wire that her and her co-presenter at the Oscars, Andrew Garfield, have just signed up to do like a comedy together. I didn't read all the details because we're just getting ready to start the show. We might have to talk about it on the show tomorrow, but Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh together? Sign me up. All right, what's next?
Christian Rodriguez just sends in a super chat.
Thank you, Christian.
Sensational Gaming says, even though it's explicitly stated in part 1 and 2, I think fans forget Joel's decision goes completely against what Ellie wanted.
And I talked about this in detail last night in the open spoiler discussion, but listen, Ray, when we were watching Last of Us, Ray's response to what was going on in the last part of the last episode was exactly what Druckmann and Mason wanted. Because we're watching it unfold and Ray's like, I don't know if I agree with what Joel's doing. It's like, that's exactly how they want us to feel. They want us to feel torn about whether, here's what I came down to. Rob, tell me if you relate with this. My thing that I landed on was, there is no way around it. What Joel is doing is wrong. But I think what Joel is doing is also what a lot of people would do if they were in his situation, whether it was right or wrong.
Totally agree.
I mean, and that's the part of the brilliance of this show. It makes us as audience members go, I want to cheer for him, but yay murder? I mean, it was like, it tears us, right? I love movies or TV shows that puts us as audience members in a place of going, what the hell would I do? What would I do? And really make you think about that. And it was done even better than it was in the game. It was done because in the game, I said this on the show last night, in the game, it felt like an easier decision because it's sanitized, right? Like what Joel does in the game is a little bit more sanitized. In the TV show, they put your face right into it. There is like truly horrific things that, listen, there's a dude there who's trying to save the world. There's a dude there who's like a guard and he's working with the Fireflies and he knows their mission right now is to try to bring hope to the world and try to save the world. And then around the corner comes this guy who shoots you in the face. And it's like, I don't know how I feel about this. And it's so brilliant that they make you feel that way. I love that. Absolutely loved it. Anyway, all right, what's next?
Wicked Man says, I love Goodfellas. It's my favorite movie.
I love Goodfellas too, but I'm not going to lie to you. On the debate of what is the greatest mobster movie of all time, to me, it's not even close. Like Goodfellas is amazing. It's not The Godfather.
Right.
It's not The Godfather.
I
But
agree.
I've read some great debates on that one though for a long time.
But it is a great film.
It's fantastic. All right, what's next?
Mark24 Gaming sends in a super chat.
Thank you, Mark. As does Guillaume Lebel sends in a super chat. And guys, That'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those super chats. Number one, because it gives great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us involved with the show, thank you guys so very much for your support. Once again, want to remind you guys that if you want to participate in our open mic show a little bit later, you don't have to wait till the show starts to send in a live question. We are now taking questions via the mailbag style by going to the link streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. You can go ahead and fire in your question there anytime 24/7 for an upcoming open mic, and we will read those. And we have an open mic coming a little bit later today at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Hope you guys will join us for that. All right, guys, for everybody in the room, Mr. Ray Ora, back there, Taylor Gonzalez, running the show today. Of course, Jonathan Voico, writer, director, producer, Robert Meyer Burnett. My name's John Campea. Thanks a lot for being here, guys. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye. Send me yo script.
Haters will say it's Photoshop.
Oh my God.
Wow.
I love the smile you put on his face.
Wow, dude.